Hi, my name is Iannielli, and just to start, I've been getting a lot of comments because my hair covers my eyes, and people say that I have nice eyes and I should show them. So I guess I'm trying my best to remove the hair from my eyes. And you're probably wondering why I even have my hair go down below my eyes. I guess part of it is because I have insecurities. Growing up, male, I didn't feel comfortable and I couldn't really grow my hair out. But living now as a woman, I still have insecurities and concerned about my appearance. And maybe it's a psychological thing, but I feel like if I cover my eyes with my hair, that I don't have to see people and worry how they're going to judge me. You know, I'm very self-conscious. I still wonder if I pass okay in public. You know, I am very shy, and I try to, I guess, cover my eyes because I really don't like making eye contact with people. I avoid making eye contact quite a bit. I couldn't do that as a guy because I used to have my hair cut short. But as a woman, being that I suffer anxiety, not because I'm a woman, but in general, I suffer anxiety, depression, the fact that I'm not working and I wish I could. And it's not like I don't want to work. It's just that my income would probably not be enough to afford my current expenses. And the disability that I did earn over my years of working and paying premiums too for the privately held disability. So I don't feel any guilt. Why should I? I'm entitled to collect disability. The only thing that I'm concerned about now is that the Republicans want to fool around with Social Security so they can cover their mistakes with their supposed middle income tax breaks, which was a total lie. But getting back to why I cover my eyes, it's because I just tend to avoid people. And I am struggling with depression, and sometimes I just don't want to be seen or noticed. I don't know if covering my eyes makes me more like someone to be noticed, to be honest with you. But I understand where you're coming from. Those people who say I should leave my eyes open. And I'm getting used to the way I look, and I am feeling much better. But I know it's only temporary, because we all have to age. So I'm trying to make the best of my feminine transition, because I'm going to age just like anybody else. I'm going to have all the things that old people experience. Sometimes I wish I could freeze this moment in time to avoid aging, but that's never a reality. It's a fantasy, as we all want to tap into the fountain of youth. Ponce de Leon. So that's why, if you're curious, why I cover my eyes. And I'll speak to my hairstylist, Luna, to help me keep my hair neat. She does a great job, and she does make it where it's not covering my eyes, my bangs. I just don't want my hair to be cut short like I did not that long ago. I want my hair to grow out. So anyway, I've been getting more into doing videos for many reasons, you know, and it helps me cope. And I've been through a few traumatic experiences recently. I'm not going to rehash them. But when you go through a traumatic experience and you suffer from depression and you're bipolar and you have an autistic adult who you're worried about 24/7, and now you're planning for a big life-altering surgery that you've been waiting for basically for all your life, your whole life. Well, at least since I was 13 or 16, but I was always wanting to be a girl even as young as 3 years old. You know, and I tried to live up to the image that I was born into. I didn't never want to drag people into my problems, you know. And I thought I was naive, but I thought if I met someone who I cared about, married and had a child, that my transgender situation would go away. Because I never had counseling, really. I never addressed it properly. I've suffered also from depression that I never addressed, you know. So I have a lot of insecurities. And I'm sad because I see those same insecurities with my son. And I wish there was a way that we could help him. The reality is, yes, he is going to wind up in a group home. The reality is, yes, I'm heartbroken. The reality is, yes, Maria is heartbroken and in denial. And the reality is, I don't know what the future holds, because I can't afford to live here anymore, you know, especially when I lose my long-term disability, when it turns out. It's not a permanent payout, and I am unable to work. It's not because I don't want to work. It's just because I have so many things going against me. First, I'm transgender and have been discriminated against. But people say, why don't you sue? And I felt I never really had a leg to stand on. Because how can I prove discrimination? And even if I know or feel I was discriminated against. Second, I struggle with depression. I have bipolar disorder. Third, I have a son who I worry about 24/7. And I've worked in the past worrying about my son, not giving him the proper attention he needed as an autistic child. And I feel very guilty about that, because I was having to put all my time into a job, many jobs that I didn't even like doing, but I had to, because I had to pay the bills. I never found a job that I truly loved. The closest to that was working for a CPA firm, where I spent 10 years. Even though I had tough times tax season-wise, I was treated with respect, dignity, and I was rewarded with generous tax season bonuses and Christmas bonus. So that was my positive experience in the working world. I also have struggled with suicide ideation, and I have had suicide attempts. I'm not saying anything that people don't already know, and I keep reinforcing this. I'm not looking for people to worry about me. I'm not looking for people to think I'm asking them to feel sorry for me, because that's not true. I'm not asking for pity. I'm not asking for people to be wondering if I'm okay. I am okay. I have full sense of my faculties. I just feel lonely. You know, I feel isolated, like my poor son. I feel like I came this way, this long journey, 7 years now, and what good has come of it? I lost my job. I lost many people who I thought were friends. I lost the support of my sisters. I've affected my son because he feels like his father's dead. And I don't ever want to have him think that, because even though I appear as a woman and I dress as a woman, doesn't mean that I'm dead as a father. I didn't give birth to my son, my wife did. She's the mother, I'm the father, and I always will be the father. I'm just addressing something that I went through all my life, and it really tore me apart. Maybe I shouldn't have married, but I'm glad I did, even though it's not perfect. Maybe I shouldn't have had a son or a child, but that has made me a very happy person, despite all of the imperfections, despite the fact that my son's autistic. He battles like I did when I was a kid. Different circumstances, different reasons. But I know, I empathize, and I care, and I worry for him. And I always will. Sure, when he was born, and I saw him in the bassinet, and seeing the nurses look over all the babies, including Matthew, in his little beanie, I always said to him, as a baby, and in the hospital, that proud moment after my wife gave birth, I made a promise to him that I would always be there for him. I would always support him. I would always help him get through his difficulties. I would be so proud of him to achieve the successes that every parent wants for their children, to graduate high school, to go to college, to study something that they're interested in, to have friends, to do well in school, to achieve success in life, in their academic pursuits, and in their working careers, and in their relationships. That's all I've ever wanted for my son. Now that I understand his situation, which is difficult to have to deal with, I realize Matthew has limitations. I realize he's not going to have the lives that a lot of my friends' children have. I realize his life is going to be limited. I realize he may never have a girlfriend. I realize he may not have lots of friends. But I know this. I love my son. I am a vulnerable person. I have my own problems. I am very depressed at times for many reasons. I've struggled with my gender identity all my life, to the point where I even require surgery to alter my anatomy. That's how bad it is. I just want to see my son happy. I want to see him happy because I don't want to die worrying about my son. I will always worry about my son regardless. But it is traumatic when you start projecting that you will never see your son happy. You will never see your son accomplish things that you've always wanted to see. That you'll never see him in cap and gown at a college graduation ceremony. Maybe it could happen. Maybe. But I don't know, because if he winds up in a group home, how can I assume that he'll be able to go to college? He'll never drive a car. I mean, I worry so much, and I think so much, and I analyze so much, and I overanalyze, because that's what my life has always been about. I think too much. I worry too much. And it was the same with my mom, and that wound up killing her, and that's why she died at 50 years old. Because she worried every day. And my father worked in a difficult career. And my mom always worried that my dad could get hurt, or even worse, die. So she was always worried, because we have a family of 3. Me, the oldest, and my 2 sisters. So she would always be worried. And she was the one who paid the bills. My father made the money in his job, which was blood money. And my mom budgeted it. We lived a comfortable life. We lived in a house in Brooklyn, a brick house. They raised us to be good people. They were always putting us ahead of their needs. They tried their best to give us experiences in life. So maybe they didn't take us to Disney World. Or maybe they didn't take us to California. Or they didn't take us on ski trips. But that doesn't matter. What matters is what you have in your heart. And I know my parents loved all of us. My 2 sisters and I. But my parents were vulnerable too. My dad saw too much in his business. He saw death. He was injured very badly. In fact, he felt like he was going to die in one of the construction-related accidents. And literally he was preparing to die. And as he was feeling his bones being crushed by the crane operating engineer, he told me that he felt this hand, gentle hand, pushing up against him with the words, "It's not your time yet." And then he woke up in the hospital room, racked in pain. But he survived. And he survived because it wasn't his time. He had things to do. And he knew we needed him as much as my mom needed him. And I wish that I could be half the man, even though I'm a transgender woman, that my dad was. My dad was an honorable, a kind, loving, caring, devoted husband, father, and employee. And he loved all of his grandchildren. He loved Matthew. Matthew loved him. They had a wonderful relationship. And it's just unfortunate that my father became so desperate that he felt suicide was his only choice. And it's hard to deal with that. And he saw my mom suffer, being in the hospital. And I don't like to dredge up this. I don't like to be depressed. I don't like to say things repetitively and talk about the same things. I don't. But I'm trying to address the things in my life that have held me back. And that I can review these videos that I make, hoping that when I watch it again one day, that my life will have substantially improved, and this will only be a memory, a time capsule, if you will. And I do want to make other kinds of videos. I want to make happy videos. I want to make videos where we celebrate achievements and happy events. Just like people who have a daughter who gets married, and they take video and they take many, many pictures, and they put it on their Facebook pages because they're overjoyed that their daughter, their little baby girl, is now a grown woman and is married to the man of her dreams, hopefully. And I enjoy seeing those kinds of moments. And I also like seeing moments where they celebrate the birth of a child, a baby. I'm a sucker for that. I love babies. I loved when Matthew was born and remembering him as a baby. It was the most unbelievable experience that you could imagine. You know, my wife went through all the pain, but I got to see my son born. I didn't cut the umbilical cord though when the nurse asked, because I was like, you know. Actually, I fainted, but then I was, you know, they helped me. Because when you see a woman giving birth and you hear them screaming and thriving in pain, that leaves a mental image. And I can see why women have babies and men don't. Because women are stronger and they can tolerate pain more than I could ever. And I would say men in general. Sure, men are strong. Men are dominant. Men take on family responsibility. But men are also immature. They act like children sometimes. And it's the woman, the wife, that has to rein them in. You know, because women obviously are more mature, obviously more beautiful, and they're nurturing. So they are the ones that give birth, because they have all of the necessary strengths and skills to raise a child, a baby, from infancy to young adulthood and beyond. And I'm not diminishing the importance of men, because men play equally an important relationship in the birth of a child, and there are very dedicated and devoted men to their child, their baby, their children. They work hard. Women work hard too. Women have to go to work once their maternity leave has come to an end, and then they have to find support to help their children while they're working and wondering how their little babies are. And I can't imagine what that feels like, to want to be with your child 24/7, but not being able to because of the financial stresses that families experience today in society. When we were growing up, my dad was the sole source of employment and bringing money into the family, while my mom was a stay-at-home mom. She prepared herself for being a secretary, an executive secretary, and when the time was right for her, when we were growing and we were adults, young adults, ready to embark on college careers, that's when she went back to work, so she could help us defray the costs of our college education. The bulk of my father's money went to supporting the household, and the money my mom earned went to a saving account to help us go to college. So I owe a lot to my parents, and I wish that I could do the same for my son. I wish I could help him, but at times I feel desperate, because it is very hard to raise an autistic child. And my son is going to be upset if he watches this video, because he's very sensitive to autism. So I have to figure out a way to put parental controls over my YouTube channel so he doesn't see this. But the reality of life is we do have children sometimes who are disabled. And for me, if I don't address my feelings and I keep them bottled up inside of me like I did with my gender identity for 50 years, it is painful. I have to address these issues. I have to find a private place so I can talk about this. And it is a belief in my heart that if I talk about this, maybe someone else out there who happens upon my video, who's going through the same struggles, may benefit. You know, I'm not saying they benefit from the negativity, but they don't feel like they're all alone. That the problems I'm struggling with, they may identify similarly and say, yeah, that's what I'm going through too. And if that's the case, whether it be raising an autistic child or living through a family member's suicide, in case my father, or facing mental illness within a family, or being transgender, and also struggling with depression and bipolar disorder and social anxiety and lack of friendships and isolation. I have a lot of things I can talk about. And I only hope that when I do talk about this, that it can help someone. If my life means anything, it would be my biggest wish to see my son happy. He doesn't have to go to college if he's not up to it. I just want him to be happy. If he went to college and found something he liked, sure, I'd be thrilled. I'd be celebrating. I'd be jumping for joy. Isn't that what every other parent wants? You know? I just want my son to find himself, because I'm not going to be here forever. That experience I had 3 weeks ago with the car accident, God forbid I passed away. Not even knowing that that would happen. I had a wonderful day in the early part of the day, celebrating amongst my fellow cross-country teammates, celebrating Coach, who helped me tremendously, and all my former running mates, only to die in a car accident on the way home. But I didn't die. I survived. And I mean it, because when I look at some of those pictures I took, and when I saw that car at the collision shop, then I got to see the extent of that accident. And if I hit a car instead of trees, I wouldn't be here talking to you. The person in front of me may have been brought to the hospital, most likely. The person behind me also. So I was fortunate that I was able to react in time to avoid the car in front of me, not knowing where I was going to wind up, literally bracing to die. But I didn't die. I survived, and I'm grateful. Even though at times I feel like I wish I could die, when all is said and done, and when you're in that situation where you think you're going to die, then you take all that back, because you realize how precious life is. You realize how precious relationships are. You realize that you do need to be here for your child, that you do serve a purpose. Work never defined me. My career as a CPA never defined me. What defined me was what was in my heart. The love I felt from my wife when she gave birth to our child. That is what makes me who I am. The love I felt from my parents. The love I hold for my son. The last image I saw in that accident where I thought I was going to die was my son And I survived that accident. And I think that was a sign from God that I wasn't going to die in that accident. Because that vision of my son made me realize why I'm here. I'm here to get the best help for my son. So when I do die, at least I'll know that my son will be okay. And then I can die in peace. That's all I ever wanted, to see my son thrive and be happy. Just like my parents wanted for me and my two sisters. And that is the bottom line. Because I don't work now, because I'm disabled, and I rely on disability, doesn't mean I'm lesser of a person than I was when I worked 30 years in the CPA accounting profession. It doesn't equate. Even when I was in college, when I was back and forth studying engineering, then studying accounting, then wanting to go back to engineering, but realizing that I had to make one and only one choice. So I had to go forward with accounting because I was struggling in my upper level courses in engineering. And though in my heart I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, I always had a sense of failure about that. I always wanted to believe that I could have been a mechanical engineer. And I always feel sometimes that I want to accentuate that in my life, because I would have wanted to be a mechanical engineer. But it's all water under the bridge now. I had somewhat of a successful career, but I'm not proud. I didn't make millions of dollars. But money doesn't mean everything. As long as you provide for your family, that's what counts. And I tried my best to do that. And all I can say is that I will always try my best to do whatever I can for my son, because I love my son unconditionally. I am struggling. I'm suffering. Sometimes I don't even want to go on. But I had a wake-up call 3 weeks ago, roughly. And I survived. And I survived for a reason. I also survived my suicide attempt in January for a reason. So I must now go forward, live my life, and do all I can for my son. Maybe it's not in the cards that I find a 40-hour-a-week job that pays a good salary. Maybe it isn't in my cards. And then again, maybe it is, once I get my son all situated. But the reality is, I still am transgender. I still struggle with depression. I still am isolated. I still have social anxiety. I've been in hospitals multiple times. I couldn't even fathom or guess how many times I've been in hospitals. And it's unfortunate that society doesn't realize that depression is a serious thing to be concerned about. Depression leads to lots of suicides. Do you think Robin Williams was as happy as he portrayed in movies and his TV series, Mork and Mindy? Do you believe that he was happy like that in life? Do you know that Robin Williams went to Juilliard? And do you know who his roommate was? Christopher Reeves. And you know what happened to him. He became a paraplegic after falling off a horse. And they were great friends. And you don't think that affected him? Robin Williams was special. He was one of a kind. He was a genius. He was smart. He had success. And he seemed very happy. He had all the money and more. He didn't have to worry about his finances. And he was loved. Loved by society. Loved by all, including me. Robin Williams was a star, but he also was humble. He was a comedian. He was a movie actor. He was a TV actor. He was a husband, a father, and an Academy Award winner for Good Will Hunting, a role that he played amazingly. In fact, that's one of my favorite movies. And that was made, produced by Matt Damon and his friend, there I go, my memory. But they're friends, and I believe they're from Boston. And one I'm trying to think of his name, played in one of the Batman movies. I think 2 of them. But Robin Williams suffered also from depression. I don't know what the source of it is, but I speculate that I believe he was in early stages of cancer, and he didn't want to go through that pain and agony, so he decided to take his life, so he wouldn't have to experience that pain and agony of having cancer. And not only did he affect his family, he affected all of America, even the world, because he was America's funny man. And he was fun to watch. And I'll never forget one of his movies, aside from Good Will Hunting, was Patch Adams. And that movie didn't really garner the attention that it should have, because Patch Adams was a movie about a doctor who was silly at times, but a very profound doctor who cared about sick children in cancer wards and other types of sick children. And all he wanted to do was bring a smile to their faces by putting on a big red nose, by acting silly. He wasn't really acting silly. He was trying to put a smile on a sick child's face. And he did a great job at that. Just like he put a smile on all our faces with his comedy, Mrs. Doubtfire. I love that movie. Robin Williams is and always will be remembered for the laughter, the comedy, and the joy that he brought to millions and millions and millions of people. And yet he struggled to the point where he could no longer live. Struggled to the point where he felt the only answer out of his pain was suicide. And he's not the only one. More recently, Anthony Bourdain, who I loved, with his CNN specials, his travels, multiple travels, and Kate Spade, who was a fashion icon. These people were all successful. They all made tremendous contributions to society. And I don't remember his name, but the founder of Victoria's Secret, the one that brought Victoria's Secret to be an institution for women, for their lingerie, he committed suicide. A successful businessman who made women's lives more pleasurable with sexy lingerie. And the reason I believe he committed suicide was because he sold Victoria's Secret at a bargain price for the buyer. If I read it properly, I think he sold it for like $1 million. And Victoria's Secret, I haven't seen their financial statement, but I would estimate that it's billions. The company is worth billions. So there's lots of tragedy in the world. Depression, heartbreak, there's mass shootings, there's suicides. The Orlando shootings at the Pulse nightclub, because of hatred. We have a president who fuels hatred. And there was a young singer who died the same day in a concert she performed in Orlando. On the same day, the Pulse nightclub tragedy took place. And you may have seen her. You may have heard her name. But if you didn't, you should watch her on one of those talent shows where she sang her heart out. Christina Grimmie, young, beautiful, happy, successful, only to be shot by a deranged fan. So life is not a guarantee. We live here for a finite time. And we try our best to be as spiritual as we can be, because all we can hope for, though our body dies and decays, is that our souls will go to a better place, to heaven in my religion. I'm Catholic, and I'm also questioning Mormon, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because I've met wonderful people there. In fact, 3 of those guys, elders, that's their title, elders, Elder Meyer, Elder Gleed, and Elder Thompson. They were at my house, and I didn't even realize they were coming. When I was literally on the floor as a result of an overdose of my medication, deliberate overdose. And if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here. And there was a reason why they were here. The same reason why I didn't die in that car crash. Because I'm still supposed to do something with my life. I still have a purpose. My purpose is my son. My purpose is not to slave away at a job 50 to 60 hours a week as I'm approaching 60 years old. That's not my purpose. My purpose is to help my son as best I can and see that he will be taken care of when I die. We're all going to die. We just don't know when or how, but we know we will die. That's just the facts of life. We all must come to realize that life is precious and it can be easily taken away in a moment's time. And I was lucky that I survived 2 tragic things. And I'm here for a purpose. That's for my son and my family. And I will do the best I can because God believes in me. And I need to believe in me too. And just because I'm transgender doesn't mean that I should be guilted, that I should be ashamed, that I should be discriminated against, that I should feel guilt because people think I'm selfish and self-absorbed. Well, that's simply not the case. I don't live in your shoes, and I don't judge you, and you don't live in my shoes, so you should not judge me. I have friends who care. I have friends who listen, and I'm grateful for that. I have family who care, and I have family who don't. And that's just something I have to get used to, because I have friends too who do care. So if my blood family doesn't care about me, then I don't care. I'm not vengeful. If they have something that they celebrate and achieve, I'll comment and I'll be very positive. And if they don't comment on mine or don't even give me a second, they don't even care, that's not my problem. That's their problem. And I'm not going to let that hate factor into me. I will celebrate their joys. And I will also mourn their tragedies. Because I care. They may not care, but I care. And that's most important to me. And it will always be that way. Because I have a heart. I have compassion. I have love. I may not be the most intelligent person. I may be very naive of a person. I may be very inexperienced as a person. But that doesn't mean that I can't have feelings, emotions, concerns. I love people. If they do right by me, I do right by them. And if they don't do right by me, but I still care about them, I will still do right by them. And I'm sorry if I criticize my sisters, because realistically, I don't want to criticize my sisters. And I don't want people to know our relationship has gone south. But the fact is, I'm a human being, and I have feelings. And when I feel that my sisters can't even extend their wishes to me when I have a very bad traumatic accident, and I see them post about a friend's dog that died, and they seem more interested in that than their own brother, because maybe they're transphobic and they don't accept me as a transgender woman. And if that's the case, I pity them. I don't pity me. I pity them for their lack of judgment in realizing that I am a good person, despite the fact that I'm transgender. And I would never be selfish or be self-absorbed or hurt my son or my family. I can't help the way I was born. I happen to be transgender, and I hid it for 50 years. And the fact is, I can't hide it anymore. And that's why I came out. 7 years now. I came out because I had no other choice. And I've had a lot of negative consequences resulting from coming out. And unfortunately, many transgenders do. And that's why there's a 40 to 45% suicide or attempted suicide rate amongst the transgender community. Because transgenders are the most vulnerable groups of people. We are the most vulnerable groups of people where we've either attempted suicide or we've committed suicide. And I can say that I'm part of that group because I also attempted suicide. And it's a shame that we have to feel like the only way out of our pain and being judged harshly and being fired from a job all because we're transgender. It's a sad reality that our president is so evil that he bans transgender soldiers from service who are proud of their country, who serve their country with dignity and respect and love because they believe in the flag, they believe in the country, they believe in all that is good about this country. While we have a president who wants to build walls and isolate us and only care for people who support him. And he has an agenda. His agenda is to make the most money he can by milking the government, pretending to be a president. That is a disgrace. And we can never let that happen again. That's why it's mandatory that the Democratic Party form a coalition, work together as a team to beat the evil aggressor that is Donald J. Trump, who is nothing but a selfish, narcissistic, evil person who has no compassion for little babies and young children crying for their mommies and daddies because he deports them, separating them from their children, not caring about the trauma those parents are suffering and those children are suffering. He could care less. And what really bothers me is this gutless, spineless Republican Party that refuses to do anything about it, that refuses to get in his face and tell him, Mr. President, this is wrong, because they're so scared of losing their jobs that they put their partisanship, their bickering, their fear of losing their jobs over country. They are not the party for the people. They are the party for Trump, and they don't care about us. And that's why we must get rid of them, all of them, and bring someone who cares about this country and the values and democracy and us. We need someone who can fit that bill. And I know for sure it's not a Republican. So the only other choice we have is Democrat. And we need to stick up and stand up for them. I don't have much money, but I did make a donation to the Progressive Caucus, who is what a Democrat stands for, who wants to expand Social Security instead of raiding it, who wants to help people get their medical insurance, rather than the Republican Party under Trump, who wants to decimate the health insurance just because Obama was responsible for it. And there are 40% of this population that still support him. And that is a disgrace. He cares only for the people who support him. He doesn't care about us who don't. That's why he screwed us with the tax cuts. That's why he screwed New York, California, because he didn't give us a tax cut, the middle class. That's a lot of BS. What he did was punish the blue states who pay real estate taxes that are astronomical. So he punished us who went for Hillary because he's a hater and he doesn't give a shit. So we're the ones that have to suffer. And these Republicans are nothing but a bunch of spineless, gutless morons. I lost all my personal exemptions, just like every one of you out there. I lost $7,000 in additional itemized deductions. I paid more tax than I ever had to in my whole life. And it's all because of this liar who said he was going to benefit the middle class. All he did was benefit himself, his rich crony friends, and corporations, while decimating us, while ripping apart Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps for us who rely on it, whether we're retired, disabled, suffering because we can't find a job to pay the bills, and that food stamps go to at least help us feed our families. I'm not on food stamps, but I see families that need to be, and he takes it away from all. You think he cares? Wake up, America. Wake up, those 40% that still support him. Please wake up and realize that he cannot be reelected unless you want to see this country fall apart completely. If that's your wish, then vote for him. But I guarantee you'll regret it years later. You will regret it. And I'm not going to be around to see you guys crying because you're responsible for this. You are. I didn't fall for 1 minute with his nonsense. And people said they voted for him because they hated Hillary. Well, my friends, if Hillary was president, and I'm not saying she's perfect, but if Hillary was president, we'd be living in a whole different world, a whole different country, a country that would have made sense, a country where we wouldn't have 24-hour coverage of all of these antics that this moron has to bring out. We wouldn't have all this hatred. We wouldn't have white supremacists raiding college campuses. Heather Heyer would still be alive if Hillary was president. And that's the bottom line. As always, I always go off track. But like I said before, I don't stick with a script. I just speak my mind. And I think that's pretty cool. And I also think it's cool that I can talk and open my mind and eyes to the realities of life. Because you know something? When I was a guy, I couldn't talk about anything. But as a woman, I express my opinions, and I don't care what others think. I know what I know is right. And nobody's gonna guilt me into not believing what I say, because what I say is my truth. What I say is reality, and what I say is true, and what I say comes from my heart, and it always will, because I know that the best way to live your life is to be compassionate and to care. You think Trump is compassionate? Do you think he cares? All he cares about is his stupid base that support him. Wake up, America, before it's too late. And then you regret it, because the damage is done already. And 4 years from now, if he's still president, you'll wait and see all the damage that he's done. And you won't like it. But you're still probably gonna vote for him, because you think this is okay. Oh, it's not okay. And you should know better than that. You should. You should, because the world that we live in today, this country that we live in, are you proud to say honestly that you're an American when we have allies that don't even want to deal with Trump? And do you know why? The answer is obvious. Because they can't stand him. And they think he's a detriment and an insult and an embarrassment. So why do you 40%ers still support someone like this? It's a disgrace. A disgrace.